Alright, we're on the PTR server. Right off the bat, they're trying to sell you the pack. This is the thing that you need to summon for Tetsuya. And there's also this new one which gives you 100 special experiment. Okay, sure. For $100, that is so not worth it, man. Alright, before I show you his kit, Tetsuya can be rippled, so that's pretty good. You can wish him in the club shop, and you can also use your ripple boxes on him. So yeah, there he is. You can use your ripple boxes or your club stickers on him. Alright, let's take a look at his kit. His S1 is attacks one enemy 2 times. Damage per hit is 60% of attack. Each attack dispels 1 buff from the target. Pretty boring. The S1 multiplier is really high though. 190%. That's probably the highest, I think. Most Espers will have like 160 to 180% multipliers. His passive is he always prioritizes attacking the enemy in the corresponding position. He gains 30% AP when the enemy in the corresponding position takes action. And he gains 10% AP when the enemy boss is attacked. Triggers once per turn, gains Umbrage at the start of combat for 2 turns. And Umbrage is immune to petrification, freeze. While Stealth is active, takes 80% less damage from AoE abilities. 80% damage is kinda crazy. I don't know how he's gonna get this Stealth though. Unless it's already built in, we'll take a look. Attacks one enemy, damages goes to 350% of attack. If the target is a boss, damage increased by 50%. So the damage is around 525%, I think, if it's a boss. If the enemy is not buff, ignore 70% of their defense. The more buffs the target has, the less defense can be ignored. So yeah, that's pretty good. When Umbrage is active, killing an enemy extends Umbrage by 2 turns. If Umbrage is not active, gains Umbrage for 2 turns after taking action. If the target isn't killed, removes Umbrage after taking action. If the target is a boss, always regains Umbrage for 2 turns, regardless if the target is killed. And it's on a 3-turn cooldown. So he has a really high multiplier. I think he's going to be very good for PvP. Only if you have him at R4, because it's 80% less damage from AoE abilities does not include true damage, right? If you do an attack, you're still gonna get true damage by Wuyu, or if there's an enemy Daji and the enemy does an AoE attack, you're still gonna take a lot of true damage. His captain ability is 30% universal, and his divinity is before using Fury's Jaws to attack, dispels 3 buffs from the target, won't miss or be resisted. So that's his S3. That's pretty good. Make sure that you can one-shot the enemies. His R1 is final damage on his S3 plus 10%. R2 is, if the enemy is not buff, ignores 100% of their defense. 350% of ignoring defense in PvP is pretty much a one-shot on anything, except for Espers with like high damage reduction. His R4 is when taking lethal damage, he won't fall. Instead, he dispels all his debuffs and recovers 50% HP, and he gains Umbrage for 2 turns. Triggers once per battle. So this one is going to be needed for PvP if you want to run him, even though he has like a lot of damage reduction. And then the R6 is killing an enemy resets all ability cooldowns. When Umbrage is active, attacks ignore 25% of target's mitigation. Okay, in his passive it says that he takes 80% less damage while in stealth, but his skills does not give any stealth. I want to see if the Umbrage buff is an inbuilt stealth or something like, for example, Iki. And he also kind of reminds me of Zohong a little bit with the ignore defense. I think this guy also ignores defense if you have him at certain resonance. I think if you have him at R6, he ignores defense or something. But yeah, he's pretty shit. Whereas Tetsuya, he doesn't really need to rely on debuffs, which is going to be good for PvP. Alright, so he's going to get the Umbrage buff. Okay, there we go. So the Umbrage buff is a stealth mechanic in itself. It's the same as Iki. So when you have this buff right here, he's also in stealth. The animation is kind of goofy if you put it at ×5, but it's ×1 is pretty cool, I guess. So if I click auto right here, he's going to use his S3 onto this dude right here. Let me target someone else first. Oh, never mind. It's this guy. Okay, this guy is in the leader spot position, not this guy. And he also now has 3 turns of the Umbrage buff, right? So every single time you kill an enemy, you're gonna extend the Umbrage buff by 2 turns. So if you can kill enemies every single turn that he gets, then he's gonna continue extend his Umbrage buff every single time. So boom, he kills. Okay, he didn't extend it because he only extends the Umbrage buff when you kill with his S3, not his S1. That's kind of trash, not gonna lie. I think if he extends the Umbrage buff with his S1 with a kill as well, then he could be good. But now, if you don't have his R6, then he's not gonna be in perma stealth anymore, and that's gonna be a big problem, right? In a way, this guy is kind of like Moroyama in PvP. If you don't have an R4 Moroyama, you can expect your Moroyama to kill maybe 1 or 2 Espers, and then after that, he's gonna be completely useless because he's too slow. It's gonna be the same as this guy, but this guy is a little bit worse. If you don't have his R6, then you can expect him to kill 1 enemy and then be useless for the rest of the match, because his S3 is on a cooldown, right? And it doesn't reset if you don't have his R6. And even if you have his R6, if you don't kill the enemy, then the S3 cooldown is not going to reset. It is a pretty low cooldown, 3 turns. And it's a one-shot on most characters, but in PvP right now, it's hella cancer because this skill is not a guaranteed crit. You also cannot run him with Everett, so you cannot crit through Chuyao's buff. You also cannot kill the enemy with Pindar linked because his S3, even though you can ignore some damage mitigation with R6 and also ignore 100% defense at R2, Pindar's damage mitigation is not the typical damage mitigation, right? It's a damage shared. So even if you're doing like 525% of ignoring defense and also ignoring damage mitigation, you cannot ignore Pindar's damage share. His main use in PvP, I think, is going to be killing off Wu Yu or Suizai because those two units have really high defense and it's going to be easy for him to cheese through those aspects, right? But outside of those two, he's going to struggle a lot in the meta because against Chuyao, this guy cannot crit, and if you can't crit, you're most likely not going to one-shot with a 350% of ignoring defense. As for PvE, I don't think it's going to be that good for any of the False Auto Fantasy bosses or the Desolate Land bosses, but he might have some uses in Yinglong. If you do have him at R2, just to replace some of the DPS, like maybe you can probably even replace Elif in Yinglong. That way you don't have to rely on Tolan's debuff and you don't have to rely on defense break, which is very annoying in Yinglong. But outside of Yinglong, like I said, False Auto Fantasy is not going to be that good because his damage is purely from his S3. And even if you have him at R6, in PvE, it's not going to be good because you cannot kill the boss, right? If you can't kill the boss, then you're not going to reset his S3. So most of the time, you're going to be using S3, S1, and then S1 again. So the multiplier is not that high, even though he's ignoring 100% of defense. And in False Auto Fantasy, ignoring defense is not important because you can land defense break and you can also land either a Healy debuff or Six debuff, right? Between defense break and Healy's debuff or Six debuff, the boss will have around 0 to 20% defense already. He might be good for Dark Starlord Team 1 because he does have buff dispel on his S1 and S3, and he also ignores defense because in Dark Starlord Team 1, the boss has really high defense. Even with defense break, you're not doing a lot of damage against Dark Starlord Team 1. So maybe you can run this guy as a DPS in that team. So yeah, that's about it. Again, very unlucky that this guy is going to be another keepsake Esper. Again, they're going to be shitting out a lot of these keepsake Espers. But the good thing is you can club wish him or you can use your ripple boxes on him. So yeah, that's about it. Ciao.